Hello, my name is Doug Leisure. I wanted to record this video to give you a high-level demonstration of my software for recording donations and tracking expenses. This is the 2024 version. Again, I want to keep it high level. If you like what you're seeing, then look at the link in the description below, and there you'll see a link to a demonstration in much more detail. Okay, a lot of you will probably recognize that I'm working in Microsoft Excel, and that is the requirement is that you have the full version of Microsoft Excel running on a PC or a Mac. Okay, entering your weekly donations. This is the screen that we use for that. So we enter the date of the donation, and here in this column we enter the donor numbers. Now we just have a simple place here where you can create your list of donors and assign your envelope numbers if you use that, perhaps member numbers. If you don't do any of that, then at least just simply assign a list of numbers to your donor names. Okay, so we enter the donor name in this column, the donor number in this column. It will look up the donor name and display that here. Now, one thing you'll notice is that these are yellow cells, these are white cells. So the concept here is that you do your data entry in the yellow cells, and then in the white cells I have my special cell formulas, and they are locked or protected so you can't accidentally break them. So data entry in the yellow cells. Okay, so we do our donor numbers here. In this column we enter the cash amounts. In this column the check amounts. Optionally, you can also include a check number. We also have a place for the electronic fund transfer, so any of those amounts go in here, and then here you would enter what kind of an EFT amount that is, whether it's a direct deposit into the bank, a credit card, any of the online things like Tidely or Giveify, or some of the apps like Cash App, Venmo, Zelle. I think up in Canada they use e-transactions. So any of those amounts would go here, and then this is where you'd note the type of EFT. All right, so once we know the total amount given, now we get to specify what the distribution is into the various donation categories that we are supporting. So in this sample church, we have 3 categories. Now, there's only 3 displayed here, but the software allows up to 20 different categories. And what I've done is I've actually provided quite a few different parameters, the ways that you can adjust how the software works for your church. So it's as simple as the church name and address, or the year that we're reporting on or creating our receipts for. You can also specify that you want to use the software in English or different languages. I ship it with Spanish, but I have other translations available. Or if you want to do even a dual language, English and Spanish. So those are the kinds of things that you can control in the parameters. I give you parameters associated with the donation entry tab, displaying how we display and print the receipts. The monthly reports, the expense tracking part of it. And then here's where you can specify how many categories you want to use and what the names are that you want to assign to those donation categories. And for those of you that are outside of the US, I also allow you to define and adjust the currency. Okay, back to the entry for a second. So you just continue doing all of your entries here, one person at a time, one donation at a time actually, because here you can see where Diana Tran actually did 2 donations on the same day, and that's perfectly fine. If you run out of room, well, first of all, one of the parameters determines how many rows you have here for your donations each week as your starting point. It'll ship with 20, but you can adjust that to 30 or 40 or 50, whatever you need. And if you run out, not a problem. I've given you a menu item up here, the donation software. This is my menu, and in here, if you run out of room and you need more additional rows, you just click on this menu item here, and it'll insert more rows. Okay, Let's talk for just a second about doing the entry for a person's donation. So let's say it's Eliana McKenzie is doing another donation. So one of the common problems we run into, because we are human, is that sometimes our donors make mistakes, right? So so she gives us a check for $105, and then she decides that she wants to split it evenly, and so she tells us to put $35 in each of our, she writes the check for $115, and she tells us to put $35 in each one, right? She just simply did the math wrong in her head when she wrote it out. And so what we're doing at each donation entry here, we are flagging it in red when things are out of balance, trying to force you to get this donation right before you move on to the next one. So that's a pretty common thing. Sometimes they do it right, and we just make the mistake ourselves as we're entering the numbers. Our fingers slip, and we put in the wrong number. So again, it's just that idea of whether it's their error or ours. Hey, we're only human, but let's catch it and flag it as a red entry and force us to fix it up before we go on to the next person. That's all. Just it's a simple little thing, but it actually works out really well in saving us a lot of mistakes that are hard to find at the end. Okay, so we're just going to do one more entry here, and she stopped by with her credit card and asked us to do a special offering. We actually had a missionary speaker come in today, and so she wanted to donate towards that missionary speaker. So we're going to do a special offering of $35, and here we'll just type in the name of the special offering. So it's just our missionary speaker. Okay, again, you just can $30 was what she did on a credit card, and now that matches what we entered in the specials. Okay, so you just continue doing that for all of your donations, and then we come to the next part. So part of the design was to help enter and record the donations, but it was also intended to help us balance everything, to make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, everything is in balance. So we have this part down here. Now this is optional, but it's really important for those that are using the software while they're actually counting the donations. So what we do when we're all done, we have this pile of cash and a bunch of checks in front of us. So we want to go through the steps of balancing the cash and the checks to make sure everything matches. So what we do is we put here the quantity of the different coins or bills. Why quantities? Because we have volunteers helping us out, and they don't always do the best job of counting money. If they work at a bank, sure, maybe, but most of them don't. So rather than counting the 20s, 20, 40, 60, 80, 50, they sometimes make mistakes. So we're just saying count the quantity and let Excel do the math, right? I have 35 $5 bills. Rather than making them count it, just count the quantity, put in 35, let Excel do the math. Okay, so in our case we have 3 ones, and we have 1 5 and 1 10, 2 20s, and we have 2 50s. And then over here you saw the red one away once the cash is in balance. Okay, now we come down here to the next part, and what we're going to enter here are the check amounts. And again, this is just used as a cross check to make sure everything is in balance. So let's see, we had a check for $100. We had another check for $50. The red goes away because now the checks are in balance. Okay, so we're just about done, and we're ready to complete everything. What it's going to do is it's going to print this information up here, the detailed donation information, and then on a separate page it's going to print this summary information down here. Now, the part of the reason for this summary information is if you look at what's printed right here, what we'll print right here, this actually represents the bank deposit information. how much cash and what quantities we have, and the checks. This is our bank deposit. In addition to that, we have summary information here down below. And for our church, our treasurer actually uses QuickBooks. And so this is all he needs to enter, these totals by category. This is what he enters into QuickBooks. So the simple summary information down here is what he enters, including the different special donations and how much was donated in total to those special donations. Okay, let's go ahead and finish this one off. Using the donation software menu, we'll just say entry is complete. And it'll just go through the steps of printing what it needs to print and then recording the donations. All right. Give it a moment to do that. Would you like to print the donation? You know what? For today, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say no. Well, I won't waste the paper. And the information has been, a copy of that detailed information has been saved. Okay, let's take a look at what it's doing behind the scenes. It is recording all of the details here on this tab over here. It's not really a database. I understand that perfectly, but it functions for us kind of like a database. This will be, as you continue to use this, this will end up being multiple years of donation details. And from that, we can produce our monthly reports. All right, so this is what the monthly report looks like, where we have our months, our donation categories, and the amounts that were given for that for that month. This becomes then our year-to-date amount, and our special offerings are totaled down at the bottom. And this is what we print and give to our leadership every month. And we have a menu option here to print the monthly reports, and that's what we're seeing here. Also, when you get to the end of the year, the software will create our donor receipts. And this is kind of what it looks like for Diana Tran, her donation information by month. And we have a menu option here. It'll just simply go through and print a receipt for each one of our donors. So click once and then let it print all of your receipts. All right. So that is, oh, I'm sorry, the last thing I wanted to show you, we do have a 5-year comparison report that just shows us the current year and four prior years, so we can see how things look over the last 5 years. Okay, so this is the donation part of it, and when I first wrote this software for our small church here in Western Pennsylvania, it was specifically for the donation side, and started giving it out to other churches all around the world. I've given it to more than 1,000 churches now, and somewhere along the lines, a church in Chicago said, "Hey, Doug, I like what you're doing on the donations. I'm the only guy here. We're a small church. I do everything. I do the donations, but I also do the checks and pay the bills. Can you do something to help me out?" So I went ahead and enhanced this and added the ability to track then the expenses. And I'm going to be honest with you, I did not design this to compete with QuickBooks. This is really meant for the smaller churches that can't afford to use something like QuickBooks. So it does function kind of as a check registry where you do your deposits and your payments, the money coming in, the money going out. The deposit information, the donation information, will come over automatically. Here's our will come over automatically as you finalize your entry over here. We'll record that for you automatically. So we'll move that over. So what you need to do in addition to the donations is to record then manually in here your expenses. So entering the check number. If you use a credit card, you can enter that, or here's a Venmo, here's a PayPal. If you do a debit card, right, you can enter that. And then you enter your date and then your category and subcategory. Let's talk about that just real briefly. So our church here does electricity, gas, rent, telephone, but they really want all of those to be categorized under a heading of building maintenance, so we can sum up all of the building maintenance as well as the individual items like electricity and gas. So it's a category and a subcategory kind of a ledger. If you happen to have donation or money that comes in outside of the donations, like here's an example of miscellaneous income, you would have to enter that manually, or if you have perhaps interest from a CD or something like that. So you might have to enter those kinds of deposits separate. All right, now once you enter all of that, we do give you the ability to enter your opening balance, whatever our bank statement balance says our balance is at the beginning of this year, and then it'll track the deposits, the payments, and give us a new current balance. Okay, the other thing we do is as you do your entry here, we'll take that information and we will build an expense and income type of a report. So on the top we're showing your opening balances in deposits, payments, and current balance, and then we have the income on top by month and by the donation category. On the bottom we do the expenses, and we do those as negative numbers so that if you look down here, I know it, Excel is calling that a grand total, but this is really your net for the month. Okay, so income minus expense, that's your net, and it'll build this for you automatically. This is actually using something that Excel calls a pivot table. And so the only thing about pivot tables is as you update the information here, you have to go through a small step in Excel to do what they call refreshing the pivot table, updating the information. And I've given you a menu choice here. Sorry, we're on the expense part of it. So over on the expenses, I've given you a menu item here to refresh the expense report. So you just click on that and it'll go through, it'll read all the new information on the expenses tab, and then it'll refresh or update this report. As you add information for additional months, it'll just continue to add May, June, July, August, September. Keep adding columns here for the new months, and in a very similar way, as you add new categories and subcategories, it'll just automatically add additional rows to this report. Okay, that is what I wanted to cover, and as I said, if you look at the description, there's a link to a much more in-depth video. Thank you.